Sean, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic. So we're here to talk about the $1 million gift to the softball program
That is
today.
exactly what we're here to talk about. I'm
I
glad that
know it's like such great news, and then man, just only in only in the middle of May where you get a gift like this
yeah,
for
it's
for
a big deal. I mean, honestly, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but it is a huge deal and it's a great deal for me because I am very ready to not sit outside. That's like their media row is not in the press box, it's out in the concourse and it gets very hot in the month of May and I'm a larger gentleman.
Mhm.
Sweat happens a lot easier for
Me
someone
too.
of
Me
my
too.
size.
Me too.
So I'm excited to get that air conditioned press box built. I'll you know what? I'll pick up a hammer. I'll do some construction work. I'll gladly partake.
You'll be a grip like on a movie set. You'll move things around or whatever. And I got my buddy Eric Lopez, who does UCF softball play by play. Like, there's a chance they may be coming up next week, depending on how things shake out in regionals. And so we'll see how that turns out. But by the way, he was asking me about places to eat in Norman. Places to eat. I figure I told him there's one person you have to ask. It's Joe Bettner. Like if there's anybody on my Twitter feed who talks about places to eat in the greater OKC or Norman area, it's you. So
This is my
definitely,
brand.
you are definitely the person to hit up on that.
Well, we are not just here to talk about Norman eateries and OU softball gifts, although great for the program and great for Oklahoma softball. But Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher, in one of the most bizarre. No, it's not bizarre by college football standards, but it's just insane that it's happening this way.
Okay, real quick, is this more insane than Mike Gundy 07? I'm a man, I'm 40.
Yes, and I say that because I think that Gundy, being a young coach, was just kind of acting out of passion. And probably in that era, I would assume, 2007, YouTube has been around for a little bit, not too long,
You were
but
still five starring videos and like put it in the side panel.
yeah, yeah. But at that time, you're probably, as a coach, not conditioned to think about who's going to hear this? Where's this going to go? And obviously, SportsCenter existed, local TV news existed. But when you are a college football coach in 2022, anything and everything you say will be tweeted out by 10 different beat reporters all at once anytime you say it. And Nick Saban woke up Wednesday and chose violence. He had a fundraiser event with like, and here's the other thing that I think is
It's like
great.
the caravans that
Yeah,
Bob would
it,
go on and stuff like that.
it's nothing new. And here's the thing: those caravan things, and I think that Lincoln Riley was pretty buttoned up, but he would throw some shade sometimes. I specifically remember 2019. He was asked about what Big 12 team concerns him the most going into 2019. He said, like, I don't really lose sleep over any Big 12 teams. And it created a stir that comments like that generally, you know,
Another one I thought of, like 2013 off season. Bob talked about SEC bias, and it got back to everybody. And luckily for Bob, at the end of that season, he got to beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, so he got the last laugh on that.
But
So
I think these coaches, when they're in these environments, you're not around I mean, the press is there, but they're not like, it's not a press conference. You're not at a lectern. You're not, talking to 10 to 15 reporters in a room. You're just talking to people that want to give you money for your football program to be successful. You're a little looser, your guard's a little bit more down. And if you don't know what we're talking about, Nick Saban Wednesday night at a caravan type, fundraising type event, to hopefully add to the NIL success that is Alabama football, went on a very detailed rant. And when I say detailed, he didn't name drop, but like
he went on for about 10 minutes, I think.
he didn't name drop anyone, but it was detailed enough that we knew exactly who he was talking about.
He eventually said A&M,
He
yes.
eventually said A&M, but like the Jackson State player, the number one recruit in the 2021 class, who Saban alleges is getting $1 million to go play for Deion Sanders, which could be true, could not be true.
I mean, but it's totally normal that the number 1 overall player would play at Jackson State. I mean, come on, it's totally normal they would go there.
Hey, man, and I say this as just someone that, like, my priorities are different probably than most people, but like, go hang out with Deion Sanders for a few, no pressure, like, then go to the NFL. That sounds great. That sounds great to me. But obviously, a strange occurrence that Jackson State landed the number 1 prospect in the 2021 recruiting class. But then he went on to name Texas A&M, which, as we all know, historically, not a great program. They're coming off a pretty mediocre season, yet they signed the number 1 recruiting class in the country. This obviously raises eyebrows. I don't think that Nick Saban is breaking news or drawing any, unfair conclusions about how did Texas A&M turn this around. NIL comes into play last summer, and here the Aggies are, a year later, they're in the number 1 recruiting class. And, Jimbo Fisher has been, ever since, December, Jimbo Fisher has been on a campaign trying to tell people, we don't cheat. We did it the right way. We're doing this correctly. Nick Saban thinks otherwise. And he's said as much, just in terms of, we have to figure this out. It's not sustainable. I did love the comment he made about, his only 25 Alabama players had NIL deals, and it amounted to like $3 million. And it was a very different tone from, last year, where he was pumping up how much, or not how much money. He didn't specify like details.
Bryce Young's making lots of money.
But yeah, he was touting Bryce Young. He was touting the NIL success. And I get that it's different. And people are just like, well, it's very different because Bryce Young's already on campus and Texas A&M, they're bringing in players. I understand that. It's still strange and it's kind of tone deaf. But this was, Wednesday, I'm assuming Wednesday night, I'm sure you're watching Warriors Mavs or what have you.
But I was falling asleep to hockey, actually.
Oh, okay.
That shootout with Edmonton and Calgary, I was actually watching. It was fantastic.
Okay. Well, this happens, and it's one of those things that I love. We having you on today, it's nostalgic for me because anytime something big in college football happens, me and you talk on a podcast, and this was a monumental event. And people might think that's a little bit exaggerated, but we are going to be talking about this for years. It's going to be memed for years. Podcast intros are going to have little sound bites from it. Like it's going to be a thing. It's going to be I'm a man, I'm 40 type scenario, but I think it's more elevated, as we've already discussed.
I think that yesterday, because I was doing a bunch of things, and for fun during the off season, I like to throw on an old college football game while I'm working. And one of my favorite decades just to watch old games is the 90s. Like OU wasn't very good, so it's easy for me to watch different things from that decade because I kind of grew up in that decade where I got to see more games. One of my favorite games to go back and watch is 97 Florida State, Spurrier and Bowden, like the epic, that was the biggest rivalry of the decade. And I think back to Spurrier and all the little pot shots he took at Philip Fulmer and maybe Bobby Bowden, and it's like they're just tiny little digs here and there. I don't think any of them, if you combine them all, equate to what we just saw today, because Spurrier was playful, just trying to get under your skin a little bit. Saban did what he did last night, and just basically, and I need to get this out of the way, I'm seeing a lot of comments on social media is like, Nick didn't actually say that, Jimbo and A&M were cheating. Okay. When you sit down and you're talking, you say, look, we do things the right way at Alabama, and they bought all their players. You're basically accusing them of cheating. So I want to get that out of the way. He didn't say they were cheating. Yes, he did. He basically in a roundabout way insinuated they were cheating. Now, I have no problem with A&M, skirting the rules, or if they can, listen, this is an old-timey Southwest Conference institution. Of course they're going to use every dirty trick in the book. What do you think Texas is? But remember what Texas did? We have started an NIL collective to support offensive linemen because offensive linemen are overlooked because they are so desperate to get offensive linemen. We will give you $50,000 a pop. if you please, we need an offensive line. And guess what? They got 7 blue chip prospects, including a couple guys we were going after, we being Oklahoma. So I don't want to hear about this whole, like, it's like SMU did stuff on the table. Like, they made a documentary. Like, everyone is so shocked that, like, oh my God, boosters or this or cheating. And I just, like, whenever I hear people complain, oh, saying everybody cheats is like lame. It's like, yes, everybody cheats. Everybody has boosters who go above and beyond and try to, like, get a one up on each other. That's been the sport for 100 years. So at the end of the day, it's like, again, like, A&M, do what you got to do. Like, more props to you. You got a monster class. Can you keep doing it year in and year out? We'll see. But it's just watching, just, it's like we can retire the Spider-Man pointing meme now. You don't need that anymore. You just need Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher, and you're good to go.
I do have a working theory, just kind of going back to, I think that Saban's guard was down a little bit in this scenario. I mean, there was a lot of vitriol in his voice, which is why, like, you bring up the Spurrier thing. You know, Lincoln Riley was kind of that way too. Like, he will take shots. He'll do it in a very nonchalant way, though. He's just kind of poking at you. But Saban, there was some anger in his voice. Part of me, my theory, I don't know if it's true or not, Alabama's NIL, the state, like the NIL policies they pass, like the state of Alabama, are a lot more restrictive than other states. And I wonder if Saban was like, you know what, this might cause some backlash, but I really need to get, like, the state of Alabama to fix this, because I'm not playing catch up with the rest of the SEC. I've built too much to get to this point and see Texas A&M of all programs surpass me because we can't, shell out money because of the rules that we put in place.
I need Mark Ingram and Julio Jones to go on more free boat rides.
But it is an incredible moment in college football, just kind of lore. I mean, it's a top 5, like, off-season day in college football, like, over the last decade, very easily, maybe longer than that. But it kept getting better. Like, I kept tweeting last night, like, I was like, this just keeps getting better and better. And then Jimbo Fisher on the day of our Lord, what is it, May 19th? May 19th, spring practices are well over. Jimbo Fisher calls a press conference to address Nick Saban's
comment. And all you're hoping for, please tell me you streamed this. Please tell me. And of course they do. And I'm like, I literally went and I made some barbecue sandwiches, got some chips. I literally, like, got it ready. I was like, I am so ready for this.
If it wasn't at 10 a.m., would you have been, like, cracking?
Well, it was 11. It was 11 for me.
Fair, yeah.
So it's. I was like, okay, it's
lunchtime.
I can have an early lunch at 11. That's cool. And I'm just sitting back, and when you go to a really funny movie, like maybe like The Hangover, the first Hangover, like, that's a movie you go to you see for the first time, and there's some scenes where you are howling. Well, when he just started going there, I started howling at, like, I don't know which one, like, when he referred to him as God and the Czar and just talk about him, he needs to be slapped upside the head. It was just, and the Grinch's heart grew 3 sizes that day. It was that type of a moment for me. And I'm like, this is going to carry us through June, and SEC Media Days are only 2 months away. That's the beauty part of it all.
Do you think that, like, there were some athletic departments who are like, hey, we have some really bad news. Let's get it out right now. Like, let's drop it right now.
I mean, if you're Jordan Addison, now is not the time to announce your decision between Texas and USC. So, because you will not get any attention today. So you might as well wait till tomorrow at the very earliest.
Now, for all of the tampering allegations pointed at Southern Cal, maybe Lincoln Riley was like, hey, is that edit in your DMs? You can go ahead and commit if you want. Like, I'm good with it. But it was 10 a.m. God's time here in Oklahoma, but it was phenomenal, man. I don't know how any work got done. If you care about college football, I mean, I'm sure there's people that listen to this podcast that maybe don't live it and breathe it like we do, but and that's not a negative thing. Like, you're a better person than us.
No, you should live and breathe the sport. I'm sick and tired of explaining things to y'all people in the comment section. It's driving me insane.
Well, that's what the
pay more attention to things.
That's what the Eyes on Oklahoma newsletter is for. It keeps you up to date on everything that's going on in OU athletics, 5 minutes or less, Monday and Friday, free newsletter, subscribe, eyesonOklahoma.com.
Regardless. I have people who come to me saying, "You're my news for Oklahoma." I was like, "Oh my God, what have I created?
Oh,
what
no.
have I done? Oh no."
Well,
I'm your source.
I'm glad that we can bring them this piece of content, because I don't think that there is necessarily a winner in this debate. I don't think anyone's in the right.
We're the winners. The
fans, yes.
Us, what we won today. Now,
But
if you're talking about it between Saban and Fisher, to be determined, I guess. We'll see what happens.
I don't know really how anyone wins this situation. Like, there were people, obviously, and if you're an A&M fan, or you're an Alabama fan, or a reporter that covers the team, and I put that in air quotes because there's a few like clear homers on those beats, and if you know.
I mean, like, gas prices are astronomical right now. If you would just clip off that mullet on Billy Liucci's back of his head, you could like drop prices immediately. But think
the amount of people that were just like, "Oh, Jimbo's clearly in the right here," and I'm like, is he though? Is Jimbo in the right? Because here's the thing, Sean. Here's the thing that like really gets me, and this isn't a novel idea on my part. I've seen a lot of people talk about this, but Jimbo brings up the fact that he's like, go dig into Nick Saban's past, go see what you find, go talk to the assistants that have worked with him.
You mean like you, Jim?
You're an assistant that worked with him. I don't know. Maybe this is the platform, and I understand, like, because Ross Bjork.
He so badly wanted to, because he stopped himself at one point. He was about to no, I won't say anything. He's so bad. He's got a story or two in the back of his mind. Is like, you know what? I'm gonna just. It would not
help Texas A&M, because like Ross Bjork, the Texas A&M athletic director, is like put out to SI that like he's gonna explore like what violations Alabama may or may not have committed, breaking the sportsmanship policy.
Ow, my wrist. You slapped it.
It just reminds me of that. It reminds me of the scene in The Social Network where the Winklevoss twins go to the president's office at Harvard and is like, "Hey, this nerd stole our idea. What are you going to do about it?" It's just like, get a new idea. I don't know. You lost. It's business, kid.
See, here's the thing. If I was Jimbo Fisher in that situation, because despite Jimbo Fisher having the right to be angry, the right to saying, "Who the hell do you think you are?" A boss move would have been call the press conference and have a notable booster or someone said, "We like to formally announce a new gift to the program," some sort of NIL. We are very proud of this, and just double down on how much you love NIL and how it's working to make it, something like that. Maybe you had something like you were going to announce in a week or two, but you know what? Maybe we can announce it now. That would have been the bigger boss move, where it's where he just lays his nuts on the table even more so and said, "Yeah," but no, Jimbo came off at like a scared little child almost. He had the body language. He was crossing his arms, and he was just that Nick Saban, he does this and that. Is because granted, A&M did beat Bama last year, but they were 8-4. So he came off a little it's we talk about who's the winner in all of this. It's he had an opportunity to either ignore it, or if he wanted to pull a Spurrier type move, just double down and just egg him on even more. But no, no one really came out looking great in all of this at the end of the day. But once again, this isn't the first time he's done this. When after the National Signing Day, when he was like, "Hey, you got 7 5-stars. It's a little odd considering you're A&M, where you average maybe 1 or 2 at your peak over the past couple years." And then someone brought up sliced bread once again, and it just makes me so we're referencing random people on message boards about talking about how much money these NIL collectives are $30 million worth, and it just makes me the next big step is if someone says it was talked about in a Discord server of what was going down with A&M. If we get to that point, for those who don't know what a Discord server
I
is,
don't think we're that far.
we're getting close to it, Joe.
I don't think we're that
close.
far, because here's the thing, and I think that college football does this very often and does it well. It reminds us in a way, and I don't mean this, I'm not joking when I say this. College football coaches easily remind us they are just like us. Like, they are just humans. They are not these celebrities that we kind of make them out to be. And I say this because, like, these coaches are paranoid people. They read a lot of stuff online as much as they talk about, like, we don't pay attention to that kind of thing. They do. They pay attention to
we
a
just
lot.
dealt with the most paranoid coach in OU history this past year. So,
but like, the thing about college football is, and what's great about it, I mean, it's the best sport in the world. Just can't convince me otherwise. Very biased, but can't convince me otherwise. But you live in a world where Jimbo Fisher references an anonymous message board user like Sliced Bread. If you don't understand that context, also probably your life is better off for it. BYU put out a graphic claiming like top 10 like environment in college football via Big Game Boomers rankings. On the official BYU football Twitter account, they referenced an OU fan who has made a living off of sharing spreadsheets of rankings that aren't scientific, but they're just his thoughts. And people have taken them and just
I'm gonna say I hate that account so much. I really do.
I hope he or she never deactivates that account, because it's the best.
I hate it so much. And I know I'm gonna I hate it so much.
Well, Big Game Boomer, you've got a friend in me. You've got a huge friend, because the amount of people, and I would assume he probably gets he or she gets, I don't know the person, but like, I'm assuming that they get a huge kick out of the amount of, it's like, Zach Evans is not he is definitely a top 15 running back in the country. It's just like, why are you so pressed about Big Game Boomers running back rankings in the middle of April? Calm down.
That's what I hate about it. It's like, why are you sending this to me like it's like Phil Steele's opinion or something?
Now,
like
yeah, if that's the thing, is like, among like the flurry of off-season ranking and preview content, if Phil Steele has something that I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, but generally his takes are pretty lukewarm. Like, there's nothing about what Phil Steele does that is just like, he is not going for, quote unquote clickbait. He's not trying to, get you to buy his magazine for the shock value of it. He actually does his research, as opposed to a lot of people in the national media. No offense.
Ooh.
But it's just, we live in this world where, in the take economy, you got to have the most outlandish take. And I appreciate Phil Steele for that. And I appreciate someone like Big Game Boomer tapping into the college football fan psyche that cannot endure any type of negative comments about their favorite team. Just sensitive snowflake, just biggest crybabies on the face of the planet.
Oh no, it's not negative context or whatever. It's just like, wait, you ranked that person there because why? That's usually work. It's not because like someone is like, all right, it's like,
but there are people that take it seriously, though.
I know, and that's why it drives me insane.
But regardless, back to just, I mean, I have wanted to talk about NIL more on this podcast, because I haven't really addressed some of the things that have kind of been going on with NIL. I mean, Oklahoma and its, collective led by Barry Switzer, I haven't really touched much on, but
you will learn very quickly that it is a subject of if the older generation hates it, they hate it with a passion. Whenever it's brought up, they think it's going to destroy the sport. And
you and the older generation.
Yes, me and the older generation. And just the fact that I always have to say, you do realize it's just everything hasn't changed. It's just all out in the open now.
Yeah,
that
is the weird thing about college football. And like, there are people you would think like, did you just start watching college football a week ago? Like, this stuff has been just happening in different mediums. Like, we're just it's in a different vehicle. It's the same stuff. It's kind of like Taco Bell, like exclusive items. It's pretty much all the same. It's just like how they present it is just a little bit different.
I mean, I'll go back to, remember Jacob Phillips with LSU.
Yeah.
Was committed to Oklahoma, and then all of a sudden, the last moment, wasn't committed to Oklahoma, went to LSU.
And it'd be great if we got to a point in society where we could just be like, yeah, LSU paid him more. But like, it's just kind of like a wink, wink situation that like, it makes the jobs, and I just speak from experience as like a newspaper beat writer, that you really can't put in newspaper print because, it's in print and people are going to read it. It's not, behind, and I'm not disparaging like, rivals or 247 sports, but it's a lot easier to put it behind a paywall and put out that information that like, yeah, like there was some stuff that went on and you can kind of address it that way. But we live in this world now with, NIL collectives that are gonna possibly, maybe, I don't know, get cracked. Like the NCAA is gonna crack down on them, which
no, they're not. I don't believe that for a second.
The people that like really thought like, and it's I'm not trying to make fun of anyone, but like the people who are like, oh, well, sorry, Texas. Like Texas is still gonna overpay for freshman offensive linemen that may or may not pan out, which I think Oklahoma fans should probably know that like freshman offensive linemen don't always work out. Or at least,
offensive linemen at Texas don't always pan out. Have you seen their record over the past 10 years or so? They don't put linemen in the league.
Well, and I mean, this is like, I think the second week I've said this on this pod, like, go for some defensive players. I don't know. Offense really hasn't been an issue for Texas. Like they can score. Like Tom Herman and Steve Sarkisian. I don't think anyone questions their offensive pedigree, I guess. But it just like maybe go get a defensive end. Maybe I just just throwing it out there.
But they tried, but he went somewhere else. Like he like they're trying to get the guy from TCU, but I think he went to like Nebraska instead or something like that. It's like you got beat by Nebraska for a guy that you supposedly desperately needed. Like this guy's on his way. Oh, he's not on his way. We don't have any playmakers on defense this year, so allegedly, according to a certain someone.
Yeah, but this whole just the whole, I feel like we've been talking about NIL for a year, and I've heard this brought up quite a bit by just kind of like, especially if you listen to Split Zone Duo, Solid Verbal, like all the big kind of national college football podcasts. Like it's kind of nuts. We're still really fully engaged with NIL discourse like a year later. Maybe it's not too crazy, but like, I mean, we cannot shake it. We cannot shake it as a college football community.
Well, I think the one thing that's I don't want to say shocked me, but it's that we all assumed, I think a lot of us collectively assumed that, okay, no one's got, only a handful of like star players could potentially make this amount of money. And then you're hearing like Quinn Ewers is supposedly made $3 million without even taking a snap. So the amount of money people are willing to spend for big time blue chip guys, or just getting guys who are established in their programs to potentially just hop in that portal and come out west or come out east or whatever. I think we slightly underestimated that just a tad. Because the term it's the wild west has been thrown out there multiple times. I've used it, and that's kind of what it is right now. I do think there does need to be some sort of regulation. Who's supposed to enforce this? I don't know. It's not going to be the NCAA, because I just think they're on borrowed time, and this is like a deeper topic we could get into another day, but we talked about for years of like super leagues and the football powers breaking away from the NCAA and doing their own thing, and I think we're eventually getting to that, and maybe they can get together as like, because with the whole Jordan Addison thing that I alluded to earlier, it's like Power 5 programs don't like it when their star players get poached from other Power 5 programs. And I know Xavier Worthy was supposedly like on the danger zone of potentially getting poached by who out west, and it's just at some point it's like, who has to be wronged the most? Who is it going to take? Who has to be wrong before someone goes, okay, there needs to be some sort of regulation. We need to have some rules about this, because if you get a hotshot freshman who turns out to be a star, you don't want him just to be on the free market just like that, because your time in college is limited. because I get arguments like, don't you free player movement, all this? Yes, I do when they get to the pros, because if you're in the pros and you're good enough, you can have a 10 to 15 year career. You're in college for 3 years minimum. And if you're good enough, you're gone. So for Jordan Addison, it's like, if you're Pitt and you're who's it? Narduzzi is the coach, I think. I probably just butchered his name, but the point of the matter is, it's like he went through an entire spring practice, an off-season conditioning, and then you get to May and then he's gone. So he was part of your plans. He was built into your plans, your off-season plans, and then you lose him. So that's the thing they have to look into and try to see if they can fix.
I think that there definitely could be more regulation of how, like, what is allowed and what isn't. Like, I think that they're going to have to put, pen to paper and outline what a collective can and cannot do, because in this model, like you said, wild, wild west, there's just not a lot of oversight. And as far as just like enforcing it, I mean, the NCAA is just kind of feels like, they feel like they feel like that coworker you have that put in their 2 weeks notice. They're just like, yeah, whatever. Like, sure, you don't have to have a conference championship game. You don't have to have divisions. Who cares?
Oh, we
can
talk about that.
But we can. But I'm very much for player movement. I think it's just kind of one of those things where I've always been like, if you're just a regular college student, you can go wherever you want without, having to. I mean, you have to obviously clear some things as far as like transcripts go, but like you can mostly go wherever you want to go. I understand college football is a different beast, and there is just like obligation that like you kind of sign up for with like your letter of intent. I understand there's a lot of nuance to it, but some regulation, sure. I think there needs to be some, oversight going forward. I don't think that Jimbo Fisher and Nick Saban are wrong in terms of, what this, and I guess Jimbo's not really the one like carrying the banner that like, we need to fix this. This is not sustainable.
Oh, it's working great for him. You kidding me?
I was gonna say like Jimbo's just like, no, we're good. We can keep
Gabe Dindy literally fell in his lap because of a certain coaching change last year. So, things are going great for him right now.
And that's the thing. And I mean, it is kind of, I will say, like, I mean, I don't think that Nick Saban really, like, there's a lot of people who are like, he looks weak, doing this, like Jimbo Fisher saying it's despicable that we're talking about this. I'm just like, come on, man, let's settle down now. But like, I mean, Nick Saban is one of the coaches that when, transfer portal came about, I think he was pretty active. Just like, you really want to give me the power to just kind of like have like a menu, basically, like of like inventory that I can like add to my, please, you want them to not sit out a year anymore? Gladly come on down to Tuscaloosa. He is a coach that, for how old he is now at this point, he still has managed to adapt to where a lot of coaches his age just don't evolve with the game, and that's what has made him the greatest college football coach of all time. But in this instance, like, yeah, like he needs, something needs to change with NIL for Alabama to kind of continue what they're doing, because right now where they are, not that they're in a bad place, they just played for a national title, they lost to Georgia, but like, they're a little bit more, their hands are a little bit more tied. I'm sure that like, yeah, Nick Saban just wants the rules to change to bend in his favor. And the whole like kind of like, people talk about like, Nick Saban mentions parody and whatnot, which I get that's where I kind of start howling, like laughing out loud, just like, buddy, you're the reason we don't have parody. Like,
people are sick and tired of seeing you every year.
You are Tim Robinson in a hot dog suit. Like, we're all trying to find the guy who did this. Like, that is Nick Saban when he's talking about parody. But at the same time, every college football coach, we've talked about the paranoia. I mean, they are, a lot of them are control freaks. And I mean, you have the autonomy over a multi-million-dollar business that, NFL coaches, some NFL coaches don't have. There is a sense of control, and Nick Saban, as long as he's been doing this, I get it. He's just trying to make his job easier, and he's at a point where he can kind of say whatever he wants. And I mean, he got blowback obviously from Jimbo Fisher. He got it from Deion Sanders, who I don't know. He might be speaking right now as we're recording this pod. The kid that signed with Jackson State even put out just like, yeah, I got $1 million. I guess that's why my mother's living in a 3-bedroom with 5 kids. Like, he got some backlash, but I still think that, like, at the end of the day, that this is not going to affect Nick Saban's reputation in kind of the college football universe.
Well, I mean, Nick Saban's also the guy who abused the hell out of the gray shirt rule in his early time at Alabama. He would oversign classes, and then like whichever guys didn't work out at the end of the day, he would send them to JUCO with maybe if you get good enough at your JUCO, I'll bring it back. I mean that's kind of I mean it's technically a rule that was allowed within the SEC, but it was like a scumbag type of thing to do to bring guys into Bama, and he would trim the fat that way. It's like I'm just going to sign 28, 29, or 30. And then I can, if I got to drop 5 guys, I'll trim the fat, send them to, last chance you.
Send them down to AAA.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. And it was like, and I think they finally closed that loophole, got rid of that rule. But that's how he was able to build a roster that would sometimes went 2 or 3 deep. Like just go look at that 2010 roster and just look at the 2 and 3 deep. They didn't even win a national title that year, but just the names from like the carryover from that 09 team to the guys who would be big parts of that 11 and 12 back to back. Like it was a monster roster just by names alone. And he was able to do that like partly by like gray shirting a lot of guys. And he was able to trim the fat and keep that superstar level. And another thing that gets brought up is like him, screaming about stuff like he did last night. He screamed about spread offenses and up tempo stuff and how it was a pain in the ass for him. It's like, well, Nick had 2 choices: either retire and go off gracefully into the night, or he adapted, which he did. And Alabama having big time quarterbacks almost seemed unfair once he started getting guys like Tua, Bryce Young. But, now they have high powered offenses, whether it was, Lane Kiffin being a part of it or Sark or whomever. Alabama now has high powered passing offenses now, and big time. It's either them or Ohio State or wide receiver you at this point. Like pick your poison.
What's funny is like, I feel like kids today don't appreciate the evolution of Alabama's offense, because that was the one thing that if you got into a game with Alabama like 10 years ago, just like, well, the quarterback play is just not that good. Nick Saban never, like before really, Jalen Hurts was good, but then like Tua kind of took it to another level. Like it's very recent, like how like Nick Saban's kind of finally caught up with offenses, but his defenses were just always good enough to, win championships.
Yeah, you could run the football. You could run Derrick Henry 50 times to win the Iron Bowl, and you could still win a national championship. So, but they're winning quarterbacks are winning Heisman's at Bama now, so you better watch out.
The thing that like we're pretty much set, I think, for the next few months as far as off-season content goes. The build-up to October 8th between Texas A&M and Alabama in Tuscaloosa, mind you, will be phenomenal, which I do want to bring up and kind of bring OU back into this conversation, because it's the same day as OU Texas. There's a lot of good games that day.
They've been sharing that day. Usually Bama and A&M have usually played the same day as OU Texas. Seems recent.
I think you're right. I think you're right.
I think last year was also the same thing as well. It was like, wow, what a back-to-back. It's so you have
that was a great day in college football.
Yeah, OU Texas has been consistently one of the best football games year in and year out. Like regardless of OU winning most of them in the Cotton Bowl, it's been a 1-score game every year since 2014.
But that slate, man, it's just going to be, I put it out on Twitter, but like you've got some, OU Texas is probably your 11 a.m. game. We found out this week that Texas Alabama would be on Fox, which then I was just like, well, probably going to be OU Texas on ABC. And then they confirmed that that game will be on ABC, which will probably be an 11 a.m. kick, I would imagine. I don't think that's going to get like the 2:30 designation.
The only way it gets a 2:30 designation is that if Texas miracles a win over Alabama and both teams are undefeated. I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, I don't foresee that. But man, it's going to be a great day. Ohio State's at Michigan State. You've got Notre Dame and BYU in Las Vegas, Utah, UCLA, North Carolina, Miami, Auburn, Georgia, which I just kind of threw in there just because I think that could be
Man, I'm still not used to Auburn, Georgia being that early in the year. I'm always used to it to being like a November game, but I know they moved it up because I guess Georgia or Auburn was tired of playing Georgia and Alabama so close to each other late in the year. So They're trying to figure out schedules. I mean, you know what's funny is that Saban and Jimbo are going to be in the same room for like the meetings in Destin for SEC is coming up very soon. Yeah. So all those coaches are going to be in the room together, like all 14. So, you know, wonder how Josh Heupel feels about all this, and Harsin, and then you got you got Beamer, you got Shane Beamer there. He's just like, it's like to cut the tension with a knife. It's all them sitting around, just kind of like staring at each other, you know.
I feel like Lane Kiffin will be like the kid in class that like tries to instigate stuff. Just, you know, he will be the one that tries to get them to.
He reaches around and flicks the ear, and it's like, you know, it turns out he did it, not me.
But I mean, yeah, it's funny you brought up Josh Heupel, because I was trying to think today, like what, like for people that may not know, like Jimbo Fisher's history. He was an assistant for Nick Saban at LSU, never at Alabama, correct? He was a head coach by the time.
No, Jimbo was at FSU for a while, and
yeah, because Jimbo was a part of his LSU staff that beat Oklahoma in 2003. And then Saban obviously later on goes to Miami, and I think that's the end of their kind of run. But it made me think that just like, you know, what's kind of the Oklahoma comparison, but like, and I think the best example probably would be is just like, imagine Josh Heupel, like, and he's kind of done this a little bit, but not to the extent of Saban and Fisher. Like, imagine if Josh Heupel today was, you know, going after like Bob Stoops or something like that. Just like you want to know a little bit about, you know, Bob. Go dig up some stuff on Bob Stoops. You don't think you'll like what you find out about old Bob, which
you'll find out that Bob hated social media and had to be dragged kicking and screaming to like use it before he ended his tenure in Norman.
But it's just nuts that, like, I mean, because you could tell, and part of me thinks that we got this type of reaction out of Jimbo Fisher because I think that his relationship with Saban is obviously tarnished now a little bit by this, but I think a little bit too. I mean, it's kind of like things cut deeper when they come from someone you either, you know, worked with or maybe even consider friends. And I don't know if they consider each other friends. Probably
if they were, not anymore.
Probably not today. But I mean, you can tell, like, you could tell how I mean, you said like he kind of like, you know, kind of balled up and was just kind of, you know, kind of seemed like a kid who just got put in timeout and was aggravated by it. But like, you could tell how much that hurt him, because I and as much as like, you know, let's be honest, college football coaches are liars. They, for the most part, they are liars.
No.
But and this whole Jimbo,
hey, some of them tell the truth and say, I'm not going to be the head coach at LSU, and they're telling the truth.
That probably, man, there have been some great, like, we get pretty good content out of college football, but this past year has been an all-timer as far as stuff we've kind of unearthed.
Like from like late July onward, for me was just insane. So, just random. By the way, OU Texas joined the SEC. Yeah, an article like that, an hour and a half later, media day. Oh no, this is real. That was kind of like the reaction for like the next 8 to 10 days. And but yeah, I think only that last year trumps, in my opinion, what's going on today. Like OU Texas joined the SEC is like the biggest story in like a decade, but this right here is just, I can't even begin to like. It ranks up there. It's like, it's got to be number one. And we talked about Gundy. Who was it? Dan Hawkins, the Colorado coach, who lost his mind. You know, the parents sent the letter about being mad they're only get 2 weeks off of it, and he goes, "It's Division I football. It's the Big 12. It ain't intramurals." Like, that was a great one because it just came out. It was slowly building, and it just went boom out of nowhere. Just screamed at people.
Sometimes I wonder in those like news conferences, like what goes through the coach's mind, like how much of it is premeditated, because like Jimbo unloaded the clip on Saban, like, you know, the czar comment, the God comment,
and he slept on this. He knew about this the night before, so it's not like it was like, could you? I can only imagine how many pieces of broken furniture were in his home last night. is what I want to know.
It's I would, if the over under is like at 0.5, I'm definitely taking the, like, some stuff was broken. But I mean, the comment about, like, like my father told me, like, if you're dishonest or something, like you get slapped, and like maybe someone should have slapped Saban when he was younger. I was just like, man, like he is not, like, this is a not okay human right now. Like he is not doing well.
I want to do a remix with NWA, like no Vaseline, with the way he went. And I think
if only we could get like diss tracks from college football coaches. Although I think this is honestly better. Like this is unfiltered, like two like Southern, like, coaches that are from Southern schools. Like I know that like Saban's like a is he from West Virginia?
Yeah, I think they're both West Virginia guys.
Oh, well,
I think both of them are actually.
I mean, they embody like the culture, like obviously, I mean, you have to when you coach at places like Texas A&M and Alabama, but man, it's just like, it's just one of those things. Like I said at the top, like it's not that crazy because college football is a chaotic, bizarre thing that we all consume. But man, was this just it's been a fun 24 hours, and I know it's not over. Like we talk about.
No, Saban was as of 20 minutes ago was talking on was supposed to do an interview on ESPNU radio or something like that. So I'm sure we'll be hearing more fairly shortly. But my question was Saban. He's what, 70 right now?
He's 70,
and we whenever he like complains about something, he usually adapts, but. Could this finally be the thing where he's like, I got like 6-7 rings, I got a lake house, I can go sit down and watch the ducks shit in the yard, like he said in that one, like when he got not him, but like one of his players did an impression of him that one time, is I'll just go down, sit down, watch the ducks shit in the yard. Is it time for him to do that at this point? I mean, he can still coach. I mean, he's still got the fire, but it feels like maybe this is like the beginning of the end. Maybe like finally the dynasty is about to finally come to a close.
Famous last words.
I know. Like I'm not. Listen. I want to be. I've been saying this. I cannot wait for OU to get into this conference. I cannot wait to be part of the media days where it's like where we're just kind of waiting. We're in the airport. We're in the terminal. We're waiting to board. And there's flight delays. We're hearing 2025. We're hoping maybe it's 24. For whatever reason, I want to be part of the daily conversation, and I love making jokes. As a representative of the Oklahoma fan base and a longtime SEC member, I feel it's my duty to chime in whenever there's family problems within. It just means more. The greatest conference on the planet.
I mean, the content is way better, and like no disrespect to the Big 12, but like Big 12 media days is kind of boring.
We get one game a year where we're like, yeah, it's like for national reasons, it's like OU Texas, the big national game. And let's be honest, no one cares about Bedlam outside of the state of Oklahoma. They just don't. I mean, if it's a ranked matchup that has some implications, sure.
They cared last year.
Yeah, it did. It totally did last year, but for the most part, Bedlam, it's like Michigan State. No one cares about it outside the state of Michigan.
It's kind of like just like you're flipping through the channel. I mean, I don't know it's been prime time a lot recently, but just like it's kind of like you're flipping through the channel. It's like, oh, that's a good rivalry game. I'll stick around for a little bit, see if anything happens. But it's the Big 12 is for what it is. Like, and I think it's probably you're in a more prosperous position as like an Oklahoma or Texas fan, because most of the stuff kind of runs through you. Like most of the drama, most of the discourse, like is mostly kind of directly related to you two. And so like that part of it is good if you're a fan of those teams or follow those two teams, but the Big 12 just does not compare to the batshit crazy nature of the SEC. Stephen Godfrey was put out something just about like he laughing at like OU Texas like on the verge of like joining this insane conference, and I don't think it's like anything crazy for like. It's not like Oklahoma and Texas haven't dealt with crazy Texas A&M before.
Like, yeah, it's like OU. Like, I mean, granted, like OU was kind of like an unofficial Southwest Conference member. When you really think about it, they were in the Big 8 back in the day when it was OU, Nebraska, but they were fighting tooth and nail with all those other schools for big time recruits. Barry Switzer was always going head to head with like all with Texas and Texas A&M, and then SMU when they were kind of like emerging in the 80s a little bit, when they were doing their little NIL deals under the table, if you know what I mean. So it's nothing new to us when it comes to dealing with the crazies, especially the state of Texas. So I look forward to it. Like, and everyone's talking about like, divisions are going, because the Pac-12, they could not wait to get rid of divisions. They were ready to go. They
had that
done.
in drafts. They had that in drafts. The minute the NCAA announced that you did not have to have, divisions, they were just like, yep, we're getting rid of it. And they even put the crazy thing about that, Sean, I don't know if you clicked on the press release. They even included what the Pac-12 championship game would have looked like over the last, like, that is nuts. That the conference itself, that's like an SB Nation blog. Like, what would the conference championship game look like if there was no divisions? Like,
because they keep missing the playoff. They keep missing the playoff. So that's why they're doing it. It's like, hey, we would have gotten in the playoff this year, a team in there, if it was this game. Like if you had like an Apple Cup rematch or something like that, Washington State one year. If you had more like Stanford versus Utah or whatever, or something along those lines, or Oregon and Stanford again, or something like that. But yeah, I totally get that, because it's all about trying to get it into the college football playoff. And I think divisions are going away. It'll be the demise of the Big Ten West, which will do us all a favor. Wisconsin and Iowa just losing to Ohio State or Michigan State or whoever ends up in the East. But yeah, I know SEC fans are like all upset about the possibility of like the West and East going away, and pods scare people, because what's a pod? Like, who's going to be in the pod? It doesn't really matter that much if it's all like, when you look at the standings, it's going to be all 16 teams in one deal. It's not, you're not going to have individual records for pods or like for divisions and whatnot. So, but if you're an OU fan, Texas is going to be in yours. And in a perfect world, you'd like to have the Aggies in Arkansas. At least that's how I see it. I think that would be.
I was going to ask you, like, what is your preference on the pods, if that is how it works out?
That's my pod that I want. I want Texas A&M, and I want Arkansas. I want a little Southwest Conference type of little pod where we just have, we have the craziness in Arkansas, we have the craziness in A&M, and we have our orange blood rival with Texas. I think that's perfect. But there's also rumors that the Aggies not wanting to be in the same pod as Texas, which is absurd to me. So, and
I would think it would be funny if the SEC kind of put OU, Texas A&M, Texas, and Missouri in their own pod, just because the former like Big 12 schools, just like, you go.
That works too. That works too, because I know Arkansas.
You go sit at your kids' table, like you're SEC, but like you go sit at your table.
Oh, is that how it is? No, but I know like Arkansas's got like the rivalry with LSU, and so that's important to them as well. So, and there's always talk about, like, my favorite thing on Twitter or Feinbaum is like, whenever someone proposes, what they should do? Like, it's an original idea. They should move Auburn and Alabama to the east and Missouri to the west, and everything just works. I always love it when people bring it up like it's an original idea. It's like, yeah, we know geographical. Yeah, you line things a lot better. Yeah, we understand. Yeah, we get that. Like, everyone else has, you and 80,000 other people have suggested that, and who knows, maybe they will do that. But they have to move to at least 9 conference games. I think they should do 10, because when they did 10 during the pandemic year, it was fantastic. I loved watching 10 conference SEC, a 10 conference game SEC season. I don't know why you don't do that, but we have to have our garbage FCS body bag game in November, of course, because I think OU is going to start adapting that too, more than likely.
I mean, that has been a big change with Oklahoma's scheduling philosophy. It started in recent years, but the addition of FCS schools is a fairly new development. Like, not that like during the Bob Stoops era there were zero.
We had a Chattanooga game in the 2008 year.
Chattanooga comes to mind. Florida A&M, I think in like 2010 or 2011.
And the whole reason we wanted to play them was because of the band, and then the band got suspended for the year for the hazing incident, so we didn't even get the band to come in. So
I will say, Sean, is if Texas A&M and OU make it into the same pod, which I would assume is likely, probably.
It's possible.
I do miss seeing the Texas A&M band come to Norman. That is a good band. For all that we clown on Texas A&M, and I'm what I mean, I'm just a reporter. I'm just a
Oh
writer.
yeah, you're
I'm just a guy.
you're just
I'm
a
just a
neutral,
guy.
you're just an unbiased
I'm
neutral
just an
bystander.
observer.
Huh?
I'm just an observer. And I'm just in
Yeah,
the
you don't have your diploma on this wall here. I see
yeah.
behind you.
I don't know. I don't even.
You don't even display it, dude. It's like in a drawer somewhere, probably. Or
It's one of those things where I'm just like, like what is this real? Like, like you want to give this to me? But yeah, no, I do miss that about Texas A&M coming to Norman every now and then, which them. I mean, now I'm just kind of thinking about the pods and like what SEC. Like, I mean, like the SEC schools that could come to Norman, which hopefully with this new format will ensure that like Oklahoma and Georgia, like two teams like that would presumably under the old regime probably wouldn't see each other for like 15 years at a time.
oh, we'll see him in Norman in 23. The way things are
Yeah,
set up.
I was gonna say like the way that like things are going, it's nuts. Like, I mean, Old Takes Expose could not. It's one of those things where it's just like everyone had the same take. So you really, it's just like, are you gonna Old Takes Expose everyone? Like everyone was pretty dead set. OU and Texas would be gone. By the honest, I think most of the majority of people thought like, yeah, if not 2022, 2023 for sure. And
Yeah.
and that's not so much the case anymore. And so it does make me question like, well, what happens with those games? And obviously, like, Texas is going to get to get Alabama in Austin this year for an 11 a.m. kick, which is just it's
I love seeing the reaction. Did you see the change.org petition? It was so adorable. They thought they think Fox cares.
which like the thing is and like this might be unpopular, like I don't mind the noon kickoff. I think it's a great time, and especially if you're at home, like the 11 a.m. kick. We 10 years ago, Sean, we're making jokes about like if we can just get through like the Northwestern Purdue game at 11 a.m., we'll get to the good games at 2:30. Like I think it's great that there are.
That's because we're sitting at home in air conditioning and the comfort of our own homes. It's different when you're going to the blistering heat that is Austin, Texas, or Norman, Oklahoma in September, and having to sit through that. It's like different.
I get like Texas and Oklahoma, like that first game of the year for Oklahoma. I guess they're facing UTEP in week 1, and then it's
37-point favorite as a release today, by the way.
Yeah, give me the Miners. I'm gonna get them to cover.
Now the last time we played them, we played them on the road, and that was a tough out, actually.
To be fair, a late addition because of TCU, West Virginia joining the conference.
That was like a 10:30 Eastern kick at night.
It was late.
I was like, my God.
But like the thing about like the pay-per-view game that like probably the one redeeming quality about like the pay-per-view game for OU was they could set the time, and it was typically 6 p.m. and that was just good for everybody because it is hot as hell. First, like that last weekend of August or that first weekend of September, like it is miserable, absolutely miserable. Like it's every time like every time August comes around, like someone from an Oklahoma newspaper will write an article about like how are high school and college football teams combating the heat that no one saw coming. Just like it's every year, it's just like, yeah, they got to deal with heat.
Global warming is real. Just go to a college football game in September.
But like Texas, Alabama would have been cool for prime time, but I mean, it's just nice. It's awesome. We're all gonna wake up that day, and the first thing we get to see is Texas and Alabama. Now, who knows if it's gonna be a competitive football game? I have no clue.
I mean, if you want to see someone murdered in their own home at like noon, I mean, which is likely going to happen. I mean,
I watch enough true crime docs, man. I'm ready to go.
I mean, if you think Quinn Ewers is your quarterback Jesus and will lead you to victory, more power to you. Just don't be disappointed when it doesn't end up happening, when you have no O-line and Bijan only gets like 58 yards because you can't open up any holes for him against that front seven of Alabama. So just throwing it out there. Just throwing it out there. That's I think most Texas fans know that it's like a little bit of a long shot that they're going to win that game. But
it has some strong, and maybe, I don't know, maybe you disagree. It just kind of felt like 2016 OU and Ohio State. I think, you know, Oklahoma fans were optimistic about that game.
I had a lot more hope that they would be more competitive than they were. It just, that thing kind of got ugly early. And then outside of a Joe Mixon kickoff return, that probably should have gotten called back because he dropped it before he got in the end zone. But he got away with that. Yeah, that was a game that they probably should have, let Baker run a little more, just a few things here and there. But they made it for it the next year, and we can talk about that game.
Which is, I mean, the thing is that, like, you know, we joke about Quinn Ewers, and I don't think that anyone is unfair in questioning his unprovenness. Like, he doesn't have experience as a, you know, full-time starter at a major college football program. That is a completely fair thing to say. It will be interesting to see if Texas actually, I mean, if this is actually the year that they can kind of maybe take a step, because I don't think Texas is the people that, you know, say that they're going to get to the playoff this year. I just think I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, but just like this season.
Oh, don't worry. I've got receipts of people who say, "Oh, Texas,"
like this season, like
not this season.
Let me see Quinn Ewers, Xavier Worthy, Bijan Robinson. Let me
Oh,
see
we
that
don't.
play out.
The latter two, you know, listen, Worthy and Bijan can play. No one's denying that. Like, anyone who says otherwise is just being a hater. I would be, you could just like roast me all day. No, those guys can play. It's just the fact that, you know, when Jeff Ketchum says they need at least 2 offensive linemen from this freshman group who are just now going to make it in a few weeks or in July or whatever. Oh, we need 2 of those guys to play at freshman All-American level. You need 2 of them to be that good. You need to find some playmakers on defense. You need to find a pass rush, and just coach better. Just coach better, you know. Be better coaches.
If we can get these 18-year-old offensive linemen to be ready by week 2 to take on Alabama,
I
think we'll be fine.
They'll just like Will Anderson will not murder your quarterback. We promise.
Honestly, if there's anyone that was upset about like Alabama and the amount of players that actually did come back I guess Will Anderson couldn't. He was a sophomore last year.
Yeah, he was. Trust me, if he was eligible, he'd be gone.
Yeah. But the amount of returning talent that Alabama has, I mean, they're going to be right back in the mix. I mean, like it's going to be late November, and Alabama's probably, whether they have one loss or not,
you got a Heisman quarterback. You got a Heisman quarterback and arguably the best player in the country on the other side of the football for you. So yeah,
it's
I think they're going to be fine.
I think they'll be good.
That's just me.
I think they'll be good. Sean, this was a lot of fun. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about? It's been a little bit since we've spoken.
Man, just overall, just I'm looking forward to getting out of this conference, and I'm looking forward to, you know, just Brent, and, you know, recruiting's picked up a little bit. Feels like it's gaining a little momentum, and I'm just looking forward to seeing Brent coach as a head coach. And I know the list came out, someone the other day, like listing CBS put out their top 25 Power 5 coaches, and Brent wasn't on the list, guys. I couldn't believe it. I mean, forget the fact he hasn't coached a game yet.
Were there any first? I'm genuinely asking. Were there any first year coaches on that list?
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
I didn't know. I think the close. I mean, not even first year, but like Mel Tucker was. I thought Mel Tucker was a little low, considering what he's accomplished in 2 years at Michigan State. Like Mel Tucker barely knew the names of his players during a pandemic offseason and was able to beat Michigan in his second game. That was impressive. And then what he did the next year and nearly taking them to the playoff and almost having a Heisman winner. And just, you know, I think Mel Tucker, people say, oh, Mel Tucker is overpaid. Like, you do realize what he accomplished and what a garbage heap MSU was, Michigan State was, considering all that happened with D'Antonio and whatnot. But that's like a whole different story. But other than that, no, it's you know, I'm interested to see what how out west goes. because we talk about Texas and playoff stuff, and there's hype for Riley out in USC, and he's got he's got the quarterback, and he's got some big transfers, but man, that defense is just like, if you watch their spring game and they spotted the defense 21 points, there was a reason they did that, because it is awful. And Caleb and all that, they made up for it fairly quickly within like the first quarter of that spring game. So as impressive and flashy as that offense is going to be at times, that defense has got a lot of work to do. So I am actually taking away my hatred. I am curious to see what that looks like year one. But
I think it's fair. I was gonna say, like, as much as like I constantly see, because I follow quite a few like OU like fans, a part of like the OU Twitter, and I say this lovingly, OU Twitter mob, but the people that get in fights with like USC fans on a daily basis, like, I guess like the good thing, I mean, I'll be watching regardless, like, but the great thing about, I think, being an Oklahoma fan is you get to follow OU, but like now you have like your built-in late night viewing of whatever USC football is doing, just because you're going to want to pay attention to it. And I think that from just a completely non-OU perspective, there is a lot of pressure on USC to be good this season. They have 41 players that weren't on the team last year.
I'm looking forward to watching them play Utah. I really am.
I mean, man, I was telling Alyssa the other day, I was like, we do not have the disposable income for this, but I would just love to be at Utah, because that stadium, for what you make a Pac-12, and like, I think a lot of people have a negative perception of what the fan bases are like out west. No. Utah ain't one of them.
No,
Utah
BYU game is legit.
It gets rowdy. Rowdy for Utah, but it gets rowdy.
If you put the Holy War in the SEC and just like say this is SEC football, you wouldn't think twice based on the fan reaction to that game.
I mean, that's and the thing that I believe that's October 15th, because Utah has UCLA the week before, which that's a tough to. I mean, if you maybe I think that the kind of the book is kind of it's pretty mixed on like UCLA. I think kind of going into another year of Chip Kelly, but I think the Bruins can be decent, and I think that Utah is going to have I mean, that's a tough 2-week stretch of going from UCLA to USC. I still think that they're the best team.
And you got Dan Lanning at Oregon, who was on the short list to potentially be OU's next head coach, and he's already making his mark there.
He's already testing Oklahoma's recruiting policy with getting Ashton Kozar to take a visit. So,
well, I mean, the wide receiver room that Oklahoma has right now has just kind of like, ooh, there's a lot of potential there. I mean, you have your established guys like Mims and Stoops and Theo, but there's a lot of excitement with like guys like Jalil Farouk and the Gibson kid, the true freshman, and just some of the transfers they brought in. So, I mean, Lebby and Kale doing work on the recruiting trail offensively or in transfer portal.
Of the recent guys, I mean, I'm trying to think. It's been two receivers over the last week. But among those guys and among the freshmen, is there anyone that in particular like really excites you going into 2022?
God, I think we're waiting to see Jalil Farouk.
Yeah.
Like I think he's the one that I think who's been there for a little bit. We got like a little sneak peek of the Alamo Bowl, which I put 2% stock into how that game went, and it was just I didn't want to be the Debbie Downer on that game, because okay, Bob's coached the team. It's a nice novelty, and we need to feel good about ourselves. But I hate. Bowl games are so meaningless now outside of the playoff, because everyone opts out. Anyone worth a damn opts out of these games. So if you're not in the playoff, it's like no point in really caring. Like, talking about Michigan State earlier, like Kenneth Walker opted out, and then Pitt quarterback opted out too. So like the two prime players you want to watch play in that game, that Peach Bowl, didn't play.
I mean, if it's any benefit, yeah, it's kind of like honestly, bowl games, I feel like, can kind of become a showcase for guys that might hit the transfer portal, because like Davis Baville the now Oklahoma transfer, played a lot in that. I don't know if he went out, but yeah, I mean, did Pitt lose there?
But it's amazing. We talk about we have not
Look
once mentioned Booty. We have not once mentioned General Booty.
I was saving best for last, but yeah, I'm excited for the General Booty era of Oklahoma football. I mean, honestly, man, like
screw you, Dylan Gabriel. Move on over. It's booty time.
It's I want Bubba Sparks's booty rocking everywhere to be playing on the loud PA speakers. If he ever does get into the game and score a touchdown.
Next year you want to bring back his intro from Game Day from back in 2003 or whatever.
Yes. Pitt lost 31-21 to Michigan State.
Yes.
I do think that Bevel or however you say it, not going to put in too much time to learn this guy's backup quarterback. No, I'm just kidding. 149 yards passing, 14 of 18, not terrible. 1 touchdown and 1 interception. He was sacked 5 times.
Well, yeah. I think the one thing I can take away is that the areas you were concerned about OU depth-wise about a month ago have been alleviated. You have quarterbacks, you have receivers now. So you go into this offseason, like, I'm more convinced than ever that if Brent, if certain guys stay healthy and they can, avoid some early mistakes and bumps in the road, I think they could be like a 10-2 team and compete for a Big 12 championship.
I think that's a very reasonable expectation. 10 wins, 10-2 would be a pretty quality, and get to the Big 12 title game. Maybe you win, maybe you don't. I still think that Oklahoma, just kind of where the Big 12 is at right now, can still be the best team in the conference, even with everything that's happened with Oklahoma this offseason. I think that they're in fine shape. I know that the Suitor Scoop guys were talking on the unofficial 40 this week about the scholarship number. I believe they're
at right, 85 right now.
They're right at 85. It may be one extra. Maybe I assume that might mean that somebody might transfer out. Don't know who that would be, but they have recovered well as we kind of, I mean, the next big thing is like summer workouts, and we're here. Like we're about to get into the doldrums of summer, but I mean, man, like December doesn't feel that long ago, but it also feels like an eternity ago.
I'll tell you what, like that week where we didn't have a head coach was the longest week I can remember of being an OU football fan. I was like, you don't have a head coach. Oh my God, what's going to happen with the program? It's like, does anyone want to be our coach anymore? Oh my God, is this it? And then like the most dramatic plane landing of all time. It feels like yesterday just watching, like, I've never seen anything like that in my life, with like, the pomp and circumstance of welcoming in a new head coach. And it's like, our savior is here. He's come back home. Daddy's home now. Help us. That's what it felt like.
It wouldn't be a see-through reunion without Sean Fate crying. I'm glad that we checked that off of our bingo cards. So
I've done lots of things in the old podcast days. I think that the one thing I go back to every once in a while, and I know it like drove you insane. My favorite fake crying moment ever was reading the article about the guy from Pennsylvania who was so upset that Baker was going to likely win the Heisman, and not oh God, who's the Penn State running back? Who's the Giants? Right now?
Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley. He was just so upset that he was just like, what a travesty it was that Saquon Barkley was not going to win the Heisman.
I just think those columns are funny because, like, I mean, the way that they get read, because I feel like you can read anything in like a dramatic voice and be like, like, how pathetic is this guy? But I just imagine like this, like looking back now, like, because when you're writing daily for a newspaper, I mean, I'm just gonna put this out there. You sometimes mail in some stuff. I just imagine this guy's like, this will probably never get read. Like, but yeah, no, those are the days, so man.
It was so tragic that Saquon Barkley didn't win the Heisman.
Oh man. Well, Sean, I appreciate you for clearing your schedule and doing this little emergency pod of sorts with me to talk about. I mean, it's just been this is all I've been able to focus on today. Like I got work done today, but this is
Oh,
all I've been able to focus
don't worry.
on.
I'm sure there'll be more. This will last and to the next.
This is just the start, y'all.
This is just the beginning. A war is brewing in the Southeastern Conference.
We're nowhere near close to the end. So buckle up. It's going to be a fun ride. But Sean, good talking with you, man.
Good to be here.